People say you remember the worst days by smell. I remember the wedding by the scent of rented roses and burned coffee. The mansion had those showy hedges trimmed into shapes nobody could name. I stood at the bottom of the steps with my best shirt tugging at my throat and a paper card in my hand that said, "Father of the groom," in the kind of script that looks like it is apologizing for you. I arrived at the mansion. My daughter spoke loudly so the crowd would hear it. "Who let this old woman in? She's like a plague, always coming back." She was smiling when she said it, a bright pageant smile, the kind that hides teeth. People did not laugh, but they did not defend me either. That is how cruelty earns its tip. I kept silent. You learn that after 60. Silence has more weight than pride. The string quartet in the courtyard kept soaring at a pop song like it owed them money. My son was at the top of the stairs, in a blue suit, worthy of a car commercial. He saw me and did a quick check of the guests, as if I was a stain he might conceal with a clever shoulder turn. The bride broke free of the photo cluster, like a bird cutting out of a flock. She came down the marble steps with her gaze fixed on me, heels punching the stone. She held out her hand, the way a bank teller holds out a receipt no one asked for. "Your apartment keys," she said. "We need them." "Do you?" I said. "So we can list it. The place is outdated. We want something modern, someplace people actually want to visit. You said you wanted to help. This is how you help." I looked at my son, who studied the hedges like they had the answer. "You asked me to be here for your wedding," I said, "not to hand you a building." The bride tilted her chin. "Dad," she said, putting sugar on the word like a prank, "don't be difficult." "Ma," my daughter called across the courtyard, loud enough to turn heads. "You always make it about you." "That sounds like me," I said. "Sometimes you think a day will be remembered for the quiet ways it breaks. But this one picked noise. The bride slapped me. It was not a movie slap with a crisp line and a precise angle. It was a real one. She struck my cheek with her open palm, and the rings left tiny cold stars. The crowd gasped like a single animal. The security guards came in, those tuxedoed bulls they rent for rich events. They looked at me, the way a ditch looks at a car. My hand stayed at my sides. I did not take a step. I watched them pass me like I was furniture and climb the stairs to my kids. They spoke to my son and my daughter and the bride. Then they walked them toward the side path, as if escorting them out for a drink they did not want. Guests rustled, phones lifted, then lowered. The quartet played louder, like volume could fix anything. No one understood what had happened. I did, or at least I understood enough to make a call. I pulled my little phone from my pocket. The case was cracked. It looked like a map of some country that does not exist anymore. I dialed a number saved as just a first name, one I had not called in years. "Yeah," the voice said. He always answered like that, like every call was the start of a fight he had already won. "I could use a witness," I said. "Where?" he said. I told him. I hung up. I put the phone away. I could feel eyes on me. The bride's father, a real estate seminar in human form, stared from the balcony with the tightness of a man who lives on lean meat and grudges. He whispered to a woman with a tan like lacquer. My son stood at the top of the stairs again, with his smile put back on. He lifted a champagne glass for the photographer and looked brave and harmless and for sale. The string quartet's violinist broke a string. The sound snapped through the courtyard. People jumped and laughed and then did not laugh. I took a chair at the edge of the path and folded my hands. A woman in a green dress came to offer me a napkin for my cheek and said she hoped I was all right. I thanked her. My cheek burned where the rings had kissed it. I felt old and new at the same time. 20 minutes later, I heard the engine. You can always tell a man by the way he parks. He did not pull up to the front like a hero. He put the truck by the service gate and stepped out without hurry. He wore a suit like he had fought it and won. The scars on his hands were white lines, old and quiet. When he walked through the side door into the courtyard, people cried. Not everyone, but enough. Some guests knew him. Some guests had heard of him. A few had been saved by him in ways that did not make the local paper. He had been the right hand for the wrong men once upon a time. Then he founded a security firm that refused the wrong contracts and took the right ones. He made money quietly and gave it away loudly. He owed me, or thought he did. I never asked for that debt, but I was not above letting it pay me interest. He nodded at me like we were meeting for coffee after a shift. He did not hug me. He did not look at my cheek. He did a thing only a few men know how to do. He made a courtyard full of the rich stand still. "You called," he said. "Yes," I said. "I want you to stand there and see." "See what?" he said. "That I was invited," I said, and showed him the card. "And that I am staying." He looked up at the balcony. He crossed the courtyard and spoke to the head of security. It was not a long conversation. Men who know things do not test each other's backs. He returned and stood beside my chair. "When you are ready to leave," he said, "I'll walk you out." "I'll leave after cake," I said. He nodded once. Somewhere a phone took a picture that would later be captioned with something both false and viral. The bride stared at me like she could slap me again from 20 feet. My daughter muttered to a woman whose face I did not recognize. My son held his glass and smiled for the pictures, like a man smiling for a jury. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? People think I became hard that day. Truth is, I had been hard for years, but politely. There is a difference. I drove home in the dark with the truck behind me at a respectful distance. When we reached my block, he did another thing I liked. He did not get out. He waited until I signaled through the window that I was fine. Then he tapped the horn twice, a promise without a flourish, and left. I went upstairs to the apartment that was outdated according to my new daughter-in-law. Outdated is a word you use when your life has too many mirrors. I made tea in the old kettle and opened the hall closet where I keep the things my kids never thought to check. My son had once asked if I needed help with my papers, but only because he needed the papers to do something he should not. My daughter had once told me to consider power of attorney because it would be easier for everyone. Both of them smiled like salesmen that day. I played dumb and thanked them and put the conversation in a drawer with the batteries and my will. On the top shelf of the closet was a shoebox no shoes had ever met. Inside were old ledgers from the construction crew I ran in my 40s. Names, numbers, dates, copies of invoices, notes about unpaid jobs. You do not run crews for decades without learning who owes who and what the law actually does when it takes its time. My son sells houses for a living, which means he sells dreams and square footage with the same grin. My daughter married a man who does nothing for a living and gets paid for it. I did work. I learned rules. I learned the way paperwork can be a better tool than a fist if you are patient. I read by the kitchen light until the clock said 2 a.m. Then I pulled the folder from beneath the shoebox. It was the copy of the competency hearing they tried to start 2 years earlier. They did not know I had it. They thought the lawyer kept the only set. They thought the old man did not read. The pages were grey from the printer at the tiny strip mall law office where I told the paralegal that, yes, I wanted my copy and no, I did not need a bag. The petition had my daughter's clean cursive. It said I was forgetful. It said I had misplaced money and left the stove on and wandered without my phone. It said I had threatened to give the apartment to the church and that I was being exploited by people who did not want my best. It said my son was the proposed guardian, and my daughter agreed. It was filed, then withdrawn. They had been talked out of it when they realized the hearing would demand evidence. But the paper trail existed. I saw my son's signature beside my daughter's, and the lawyer's stamp, like a bruise that was never treated. I closed the folder. I made a plan that began as a shape and sharpened as the night collected itself. My plan had 5 parts. First, let the world hear the truth about my son's business that everyone already knew in whispers. No hacking, no tricks. Just stories with dates and names, and the kind of photographs that are not explicit but are not innocent either. Real estate is a hungry dog. It eats reputation first. Second, hold a small mirror to my daughter in front of the people who liked her best. Her husband and his family loved her because they thought she was the upgrade they ordered. I would show them the receipt. Third, all the money streams my children sipped from would be turned off by the people who owned the faucets. Again, legal. Again, ordinary. You do not have to break a system to make it work. Fourth, I would reveal the competency papers when it mattered and make them say aloud why they filed them. Nothing ruins a liar like their own voice. Fifth, I would finish where it began. In a hall or a room that smelled like flowers. Not with blood, with a ledger closing. I slept for 2 hours and dreamed about the truck that pulled up to the mansion and the man who stepped out. He had once slept in the back of that truck under a thin blanket of November air. I had given him a job and a key to the crew lockup and a week of lunches when he came back from a place where the ground goes off under your feet. That was years ago. He had gotten clean on purpose while my son got clean by accident when a girlfriend left him. The world is strange, stranger than roses and cake. In the morning, I went to the coffee place where the milk is always missing and the regulars do not sit so much as dark. The owner waved. She still owed me money for a small job my crew did in 2004. I never collected. The ceiling we patched still looked good. You have to let some debts turn into jokes if you want to stay human. I called the man with the truck. I need 3 introductions, I said. All clean. Names, he said. I gave him one at a time. A journalist who hated the word influencer but loved audience numbers. A loan officer who was more honest than his job description demanded. A property manager who believed in signed permits like holy texts. All right, he said. And I need to see a lawyer, I said. A good one, he said. A precise one, I said. He told me to come by the office, where you need a code to enter, even though the lobby is empty. I went and sat across from him at a table that had seen better fights. He listened to my outline. He did not look like he approved. He looked like he was inventorying full risks. Are you sure you want to do it? He said. They tried to put me under paper, I said. They took my money the year I had the bad knee. They framed it as help. And yesterday, she held out her hand and asked for my home like it was a mint. Yes, I am sure. You want to scare them or break them, he said. Break them without leaving a mark, I said. Then you will need patience and allies who do not care about Instagram, he said. We have both. He called the journalist first. She met me that afternoon in a quiet booth where the beer taps make a sound like the start of rain. She listened to me describe my son's staging operation. He would take photos of an apartment that had been furnished for a different listing and pretend it was this weekend's dream. He would promise amenities that would never fit in the walls. He had a habit of forgetting the fire inspection on buildings built before the fire code had teeth. Proof, she said. I worked construction, I said. I know the super in 3 of his favorite buildings. One of them keeps a folder of everything. He thinks one day someone will care. Today is that day. She smiled without warmth. I will call him, she said. I will give you 4 more numbers, I said. People he shorted, people he ignored, people he told to sue the city when the city was the one saving them. Do it, she said. I slid a paper across the table. We did not shake hands. She did not owe me a good story. She owed me a fair one. That is all I asked. The loan officer was next. He worked at a bank that has a nice commercial where kids run through sprinklers while an older couple signs papers. He wore a tie with a stain he had stopped noticing. I liked him right away. He could smell risk through drywall. My son holds a portfolio of high-interest bridge loans through your competitor, I said. He acts like they will stay sweet because his smile is sweet, but the lender is sour and the dates are wrong. What are you asking? He said. Nothing, I said. Just letting you know that a few loan recalls this month might be the right call from a safety perspective. If there is a default clause about misrepresentation, maybe look closer. You protect your bank and your clients. If that protection happens to tighten a belt around a man who thinks belts are for other people, that is not my fault. He studied me. He had the eyes of a man who has watched more marriages end across a desk than any priest. All right, he said. I will review what is public. If I see a problem, we will act. Thank you, I said. Do you want me to tell you when we act? He said. No, I said. I want you to do your job. The property manager was third. She had a clipboard and a stare. She ran 3 old buildings on the east side where the pipes complain and the tenants tell the truth. When I told her my son's name, she did not smile or frown. She wrote it down like a diagnosis. I know the man, she said. I know, I said. Check your fire doors this month. Check your exit lights. Call for inspections where inspections were promised. If you find what I think you will find, put it in writing. I always do, she said. Good, I said. In the evening, I met the lawyer, the man with the truck recommended. The lawyer wore a suit that had weight in the right places. He listened while I laid out the folder with the competency petition and the copies of emails my daughter had sent about my apartment. He did not speak for a long time. You want to sue, he said. I want to tell the truth in a room that respects it, I said. I want them to admit what they did. If the law wants to say words after, fine, but the confession is the point. You could file a petition for declaratory relief, he said. Force a record that the prior petition was false and withdrawn. You could ask for sanctions. You could introduce the emails as evidence of intent to take property under the color of care. You could pursue civil damages. I could, I said. You hesitate, he said. I will file when the timing is right, I said. For now, start the papers. We will choose the day later. You want leverage, he said. I want accuracy, I said. He gave a small smile like a cut healing. 2 days after the wedding, I went to pick up my old toolbox from the storage locker where my son told me to keep it so the apartment would look less like a workshop and more like a waiting room. The sun had that white look it gets when it is hot enough to bring up things no one wants to talk about. I loaded the box into the trunk of my car and closed it, careful with the latch. I felt someone behind me before I heard him. Ma, my son said. He leaned on the next car with his jacket off. He had a tie in his hand like a pet on a leash. He put on a smile slow enough to make you see it was invented. We are not doing the sitcom version, I said. Then let's do the human version, he said. You embarrassed us in front of 100 people. I sat in a chair, I said. Someone else did the rest. He took a step. You brought that guy. You think that makes you tough. Money makes men tough. He has money now. He is not the man you remember. You made a call, Ma, that is all. I made more than a call, I said. He set the tie on the roof and came closer. Give me the keys, he said. It is the easiest way. I'll get you a place with an elevator that does not stutter. I'll hire you a cleaner. No more stairs. You deserve comfort. You mean you deserve capital, I said. Why be cruel, he said. I learned it from you, I said. He reached for my purse. I moved it back without hurry. He kept his hand out and held my gaze. I saw a child who once cried when I showed up late to a school play. I saw a teenager who lied about a broken window and paid for it with a summer of work. I saw a man who sold a family a condo with a leak in the roof and said he did not know. A black truck rolled slow into the lane. It stopped behind my car. The door opened. The man who owed me stepped out and did not say a word. He looked at my son, not like a threat, but like a wall looks at a speeding bicycle. My son laughed. You called your muscle, he said. I called a friend, I said. Same thing, he said. No, the man with the truck said. His voice was quiet. Not the same. My son looked at him and then at me. He did the math. He did not like the answer. "This is pathetic," he said. "You want a fight in a parking lot. You want security footage to go viral so you can be a martyr. I am not giving you that." "Take the tie off my roof when you leave," I said. He snatched it. He pointed the tail at me like a cheap lesson. "This is not over," he said. "It is not even started," I said. He got in his car and drove too fast. The man with the truck stayed quiet until the taillights were gone. "You know there is another way to do this," he said. "There are 100 ways," I said. "This is mine." "Then we should pick our ground," he said. "We will," I said. 3 stories ran the next week. None were fireworks. Fireworks burn bright and leave nothing behind. These were brush fires in dry grass. They moved slow and steady, and by the time someone noticed the smoke, the fence was already a line of black. The kind of fire that doesn't roar, doesn't demand attention, but crawls along the ground with a patience that feels almost deliberate, like it has all the time in the world and no need to prove anything. You don't smell it at first. You don't feel the heat. You just look up one morning and realize the landscape you relied on has changed color. The journalist wrote about staging fraud as a culture, not a crime. She didn't bother to argue that it was rare or shocking. She treated it like mildew on a shower wall, common, expected, the result of letting things stay damp for too long. She used other names and other firms, but the rhythm of her paragraphs matched footsteps I had heard in my own hallway. The photos on the digital edition showed a lobby I knew by smell, by the faint trace of lemon cleaner mixed with the stagnant odor of an HVAC system past its prime. The camera didn't catch the sound the elevator made when it passed the 3rd floor. That little groan, like an old man waking up, but I heard it anyway. In the comments, a tenant posted a clip of a busted exit light that had been reported and ignored. The angle was shaky, the video grainy, but the point was razor sharp. You couldn't pretend it was a one-time oversight when half the replies were people describing the same thing in other buildings, other cities. The chorus built itself, each voice adding a note of weariness, anger, resignation. The property manager I spoke to filed a public record request that showed missed inspections on 2 buildings my son had listed with big words like luxury and boutique. Red stamps, overdue notices, signatures that looked rushed, as if the pen itself was trying to flee responsibility. The loan officer did not call me. He did not have to. In his world, silence is a telegram. The news traveled by whisper and text, by side-eye in conference rooms, by the word interesting, spoken in a tone that meant anything but. One of my son's bridge loans was examined, then recalculated. Numbers that once sat obediently in rows like school children were sent back home with notes pinned to their shirts. The clause about misrepresentation did not hit him directly yet, but the bank could see that the numbers were not what they looked like when you only checked the first page. They turned the ledger sideways, held it up to the light, and something in the ink failed to cast a shadow. My daughter-in-law's sponsor posted a pretty paragraph about values and paused collaborations. It was the kind of post that gets likes from strangers and panic calls from agents. All soft colors, all gentle fonts. A bouquet of words arranged to say, "We regret nothing and everything simultaneously." She reacted the way people react when they are afraid the story is about to reveal both sides of their face. She went live. She talked about Grace. She said she was the victim of a hate campaign. She surrounded herself with candles and soft music, the digital equivalent of hiding behind lace curtains. She did not mention my name. She did not need to. The world understood the shape without labels. You can trace a silhouette and know exactly who cast it. I took long walks to keep from calling anyone. Past the park where the benches list slightly to the left, past the bakery that always smells better than it tastes, past the stretch of river that reflects the sky like it's doing a favor it doesn't owe. Revenge is a young man's sport if you let it be. In an older man's hands, it should look like home repair. You take a bent door off its hinges, fix the frame, put it back straight, and it shuts without any slam. The pleasure is in the precision, not the noise. You don't kick the door in. You level it, sand the swollen wood, oil the hinges, and let gravity do the rest. I cooked beans with bacon and read the papers like a man preparing for a mild storm. Not a hurricane, not a tornado. A steady rain, the kind that makes the gutters weep and the sidewalks shine. I folded the pages into neat quarters, as if organization could make the headlines behave. The phone did not ring. That was the best part. Silence can feel like abandonment or protection, depending on who leaves you with it. In this case, it felt like insulation, like the world had wrapped me in layers of unanswered questions and decided I didn't need the draft of other people's panic. The days stretched. Brush fires don't move in dramatic leaps. They creep. More tenants added photos, a cracked stairwell, a mold bloom behind a nursery wall. A rent increase letter sent the same week the boiler failed. Reporters followed the embers, not because it was sensational, but because it was ordinary, in a way that made people uneasy. When rot is everywhere, the story stops being about the rot and starts being about the people who call it character. Banks asked for updated appraisals. Investors wanted revised decks. Someone dug up a podcast episode where my son talked about creative financing with the smug tone of a man who thinks rules are just suggestions wearing ties. The clip circulated, laughed at first, then replayed with slower, sharper ears. Words don't age well when context turns on them. My daughter-in-law doubled down. She posted a photo of herself praying, which looked suspiciously like posing. She said God was testing her. She said envy was a disease. She forgot that some people get hives from hypocrisy. Sponsors paused. Then they reconsidered pausing. Then they quietly stopped returning emails. Influence is a currency that goes rancid fast. Meanwhile, I replaced a loose board on the back steps. I sharpened the kitchen knives. I read recipes I would never cook, just to feel the comfort of instructions that promised results if followed. I slept through the night more often than not. When I dreamed, it was of open windows and clean ledgers. The 3 stories became 5, then 7. Nothing explosive, just more ash in the air. A city council member asked for an audit. A fire marshal retired suddenly. A junior associate at a law firm leaked a memo that used the phrase systemic exposure. That was when the whispers in my son's circle turned into throat clearing, into careful distancing, into the kind of polite betrayal that arrives in embossed envelopes. I kept walking. I watched the brush fires do what they do, turn the dry parts of the world honest. There is a clarity in loss when it is deserved, a purity in consequences finally catching up. I did not cheer. I did not mourn. I simply observed, the way a man watches a storm he forecast years ago. The phone stayed quiet. No apologies, no accusations, no pleas for help disguised as updates. Just the hush of a house that no longer expects interruption. In that quiet, I found a truth I had been circling for decades. Sometimes the best revenge is not the fall of the guilty, but the peace of the witness who no longer feels responsible for stopping it. Beans simmered, papers folded, the sky darkened early one evening, and I let it. There is a time for floodlights and a time for lanterns, and there is a time to simply sit in the dark and trust that the world, left to itself, still knows how to finish what it starts. My daughter's husband liked to host dinners that were mostly about his own voice. He loved the lawyer friend who told jokes like court filings. He loved showing my daughter off like a new kitchen with smart counters. He liked to use words like legacy before appetizers. I went because my daughter asked, and because I wanted a room with all the right egos in it. It helps when you want to open a door without a crowbar. The lawyer friend smiled at me with a little too much tooth. "We saw the news," he said. "Crazy out there. People can say anything and make it look true." "Not anything," I said. "Only the things that are true if you ignore them long enough." He laughed like a car alarm. My daughter's husband poured wine with 2 hands. My daughter wore a dress that looked expensive and a face that looked tired. I saw the crack at the corner of her mouth and knew she had been arguing in rooms where nobody loses, which is where the real fights happen. We made it through salad. We made it through a story about a golf trip that had the same shape as every golf trip story. Then the lawyer friend made a mistake. He tried to pity me. "You know," he said, "guardianship can be a loving act. People think it is about control, but it is just care with paperwork. You would be amazed how many lives it saves." "I have seen paperwork do good things," I said. "I have also seen it nearly turn me into a piece of furniture." The room went quiet in that expensive way. My daughter stared at her plate. Her husband said my name and then stopped. The lawyer friend lifted his hands like he was drying them without a towel. "It is sensitive," he said. "It is simple," I said. I turned to my daughter. "Why did you file the petition?" I said. "Was it because you love me, or because you love my living room more than I do?" My daughter swallowed. Her throat looked like a small animal falling down a well. "It was 2 years ago," she said. "You were forgetting things." "I forgot your husband's birthday because I was in the hospital getting an X-ray on a knee. I wrecked working for the money you want now," I said. "I forgot it because I was in pain. That is not incompetence. That is age. There is a difference. Your lawyer knows it. You know it. The judge would have known it too if the hearing had not been withdrawn, when your own lawyer told you it would not go your way." The lawyer friend put his fork down. "We were concerned," he said. "You were hungry," I said. My daughter's husband tried to smooth it over with a joke about family. I do not remember it. It was not funny. The man with the truck was not there, but I could hear him in my head saying, "Pick your ground." I had the table, the plates, the wine breath, the kind of lighting that makes lies look honest. "You wanted my apartment to leverage your life," I said to my daughter. "You wanted my account to fund your husband's brace of businesses that never brace anyone. You wanted my signature to be your permission slip, and when I did not give it, you invited me to a wedding and watched your brother's bride slap me because you thought it would soften me up. You thought I would hand you the keys just to make the room stop looking at me. That is not fair," my daughter's husband said. "It is the only fair thing I have said all night," I said. The lawyer friend reached in his jacket for a breath mint or a word. I put the folder on the table like dessert. I did not wave it. I did not brandish. I just laid it flat. "These are copies," I said. "The originals are wherever God sends the first draft of every bad idea. But these will do. Read the lines where you describe me as a man who cannot balance a checkbook and cannot be trusted with a stove. Read the signature dates. Then tell me again how this was love." My daughter did not touch the folder. Her husband did and then did not. The lawyer friend put both hands on it like he could warm them. He scanned and then stopped scanning and began reading. "It is a different posture. You know it when you see it." He cleared his throat. "You could file for sanctions," he said without looking up. "I know," I said. "You could ask the court to declare you fully competent and enter this as evidence of bad faith," he said. "I know," I said. He closed the folder. "If you do, it becomes public," he said. "It will be in the record." "Yes," I said. "It will hurt reputations," he said. "It will put the facts where they belong," I said. My daughter's husband said my name again, but I cut him off with a small gesture. I did not want to hear him practice empathy like a speech. "I am not suing tonight," I said. "I am just letting the room catch up to what's been true for a long time." I stood. I left the folder on the table. I paid for my own cab. When I reached the curb, I laughed once, and it sounded like a cough. My son called the next morning and asked to meet at his office. He said we could talk like adults. He said he would apologize for the slap he did not deliver, and we could move forward. He sounded like a man who can hear a storm, but thinks it is a truck. I walked up the narrow staircase to his suite. The carpet had that tired hotel feel it gets when people believe shoes clean themselves. His partner sat at the desk in the lobby pretending to read the market report. He did not look up. The hallway door was propped open by a trash can. I went in. My son's door was closed. I heard voices. I waited. A minute later, the building lights flickered once, and then came back like a man thinking better of a bad idea. I heard feet in the stairwell, and then quick steps behind me. I turned and saw two men in grey suits that did not match their shoes. They were not cops. They had that relaxed wrongness of private security hired too fast. "Can we help you?" one of them said. It was not a question. "I am here to see my son," I said. "He's busy," the other said. "He asked me to come," I said. "Then wait outside," the first one said. "The lobby is inside," I said. "The street," he said. I stepped back into the hall and felt the old buildings in my bones. I know what is safe, I know what is not. A closed door, with hired men in front of it, is not safe. You do not stand between men with a job and the door they think is their problem. You choose a stairwell that bends and run the numbers there. The stairwell was cooler. I put my hand on the rail and took the first 3 steps quiet. The second man came behind me, quick but not worried. They thought I would go to the street and wait in the heat like any other problem. I went up. The 3rd floor held storage closets and a set of windows that do not open wide. The hallway was a narrow throat. I walked to the end and stood by the window and looked at the street. The truck was parked across from a hydrant with the flashes on. The man stood beside it, talking to a meter maid like they were friends, which maybe they were. He did not look up. I did not wave. I just knew he would be where I had told him to be, which is what trust feels like when you are old. The men reached the landing. "Sir," the first one said, like I was about to jump and he had not done that training. "I am going down," I said. "You are in my way." "That is the idea," he said. "Then move," I said. "We can do this hard or easy," he said. Men who think that is a choice have never seen hard. The next part happened fast and slow. He reached for my arm. I stepped toward him instead of away and put my shoulder into his chest the way a lineman taught me once when I was younger, and said yes too easily to pick up games with men who were bigger but not smarter. He stumbled. I slid past him on the outside of the stair and took the next steps down and heard his partner curse in a voice that did not like being surprised. I hit the 2nd floor landing and the door opened from the lobby side. My son's partner stood there with eyes like saucers. "What are you doing?" he said. "Leaving," I said. "You can't," he said. "Watch me," I said. He stepped back. He did not try to stop me. The men in grey came behind me, but at a distance, like we were all on stage and the director had yelled, "Cut." I walked out the front and into the sun. The man with the truck crossed to me. "That went how it went," he said. "Yes," I said. "You want to file a complaint?" he said. "No," I said. "I want to send a message." "You already did," he said. I did not set the next domino. The universe did. Maybe that is what happens when you push long enough in the right direction. People push back for you. A week later, I got a text from a number I did not know. It was a link to an audio file. I do not trust links. I called the man with the truck and asked if he could listen first. He did and called back with the voice he uses when he has found a gun in a drawer. "It is her," he said. "Her who?" I said. "Your daughter-in-law," he said. "Talking to her friend in a bathroom somewhere with too much marble. She says your son should stop pretending to care about you because a life insurance policy on you would be worth more than whatever you own. She says she wants the keys to the apartment so she can flip it fast and keep the address for the photos. She says your son is soft and you are stubborn, and she can fix both." "Where did it come from?" I said. "Not us," he said. "A person with ears and a memory and a phone. That is all you ever need." "I do not want to put private trash into public," I said. "You wanted truth," he said. "Yes," I said, "but measured." "Then we measure," he said. "We do not post it. We make sure the people who need to hear it do. Her sponsors, the bank, the lawyer, your daughter, your son. Let them listen to the woman they clapped for while she slapped you." "Do it," I said. He made the calls I could not. He has a way of convincing people they discovered the right thing on their own. The loan officer reviewed what was public. The bank recalled 2 lines of credit, not from spite, from math. My son's partner left a message on my phone with a lot of words that meant he was leaving. My daughter called to ask if we could talk. I said we were. She asked if I could stop. I asked what she meant by stop. She said making things worse. I said I was pointing at things out loud. Her husband's family turned their faces toward her, like flowers that can no longer find the sun. They invited her to a breakfast that became a reckoning. She told me later that she sat there with a cup going cold and listened to a man half her husband's age explain how reputation is a currency you cannot borrow twice. She asked me if I was happy. I told her I was not happy. I told her I was clean. My son showed up at my apartment without calling. He knocked like a salesman. I opened the door and kept the chain. It is not the chain that matters. It is the choice. "We need to talk," he said. "You first," I said. "This is out of control," he said. "I am getting death threats." "From who?" I said. "People online," he said. "They think I hit you." "You did not," I said. "But the perception," he said. "Yes," I said. "Perception is hard when you build a career on it." He put his hands on the door frame. He looked tired. He looked young. He looked like the boy who once fell asleep on the couch with a comic book on his chest, and a dog snoring at his feet, and a father who thought love would be enough to make him honest. I almost opened the chain. Then I remembered the folder and the way my daughter stood still because standing still was easier than choosing. "I did not post that audio," he said, "but I heard it." "What did you think?" I said. "I thought I made a mistake," he said. "And then I thought maybe I could fix it if you would just stop." "Fix it by taking my keys," I said. "No," he said quickly, "by being better." "You are 33, I said. "It is a good age to start." "Let me prove it," he said. "Not to me," I said. "To your clients and your wife and your sister. I am not your judge. I am just the man you tried to put under paper." He stepped back. His voice went small. "She should not have slapped you," he said. "She should not," I said. "She wants to meet," he said. "No," I said. "Why?" he said. "Because she thinks talking is winning," I said. "She thinks she can flatter the problem. I am not the problem. I am the mirror." He left without another word. I closed the door. I sat on the couch and listened to the old fridge cough. I felt heavy and light, and my cheek ached where the ring had kissed it. I looked at the clock and saw that it had been 3 weeks since the wedding. Time moves like a truck when it knows the route. The lawyer filed the petition for declaratory relief. It did not accuse my children of a crime. It did not ask for more than the record. It said a petition had been filed and withdrawn. It said the facts behind it were false. It asked the court to say that I was and am competent, and that any future petitions of the kind would require strict scrutiny. It asked for costs. It mentioned the emails where I was discussed like a pool of funds. It stayed calm. It did not breathe heavy. The judge scheduled a hearing 2 months out. That was fine. The point was the date on the docket. The point was that the room would have to hold the truth soon, not later. The day after the filing, my daughter's husband moved out for a while, which is a phrase that does not mean while. He left in a car that looked like it had its own agent. My daughter called and said she hated me, and then called later and said she did not. I said both could be true. She cried. I listened. You can listen and still be the man who set the table for a hard meal. Sometimes life gives you a scene you would reject if you saw it in a movie because it would feel too neat. My son tried to move office furniture in the night, not to hide it, to pawn it for cash flow and tell himself he would buy it back later. He brought 2 young guys with a borrowed van and a look that said they believed in him the way only people who have not yet needed rent believe. The building super called me because I had fixed his back steps in 2007, and he still remembers the afternoon I rolled tar like it was therapy. He said my son was making noise and asked if I wanted to come down and talk before the landlord did. I called the man with the truck. He was already in the neighborhood. Bad news has gravity. We arrived at the same time as the landlord. The hallway was a knot of voices. The landlord had a clipboard and a right to be angry. My son had a brand new politeness and the kind of smile you put on walls. The two movers lifted a desk like a hearse lifts a box. "You cannot do this," the landlord said. "I can," my son said. "You are in arrears," the landlord said. "You will leave with your laptop and your phone and your jacket. The furniture stays until the bill is paid or a judge says otherwise." "You cannot hold my property hostage," my son said. "Read your lease," the landlord said. "It is a hostage note you signed." The man with the truck stood beside me, a quiet anchor. I said nothing. This was not my fight to argue. This was my fight to observe. It is a hard thing to learn, that the best strike is sometimes hands in pockets. My son tried to get the movers to carry the desk anyway. The landlord blocked the door with a body that had seen more winters than anyone gave it credit for. It could have become ugly. It almost did. Then a city inspector walked in carrying a clipboard like a sword. He had a tip about the exit light, and the blocked stairwell, and the rental permits. I did not send him. Someone else did. That is the thing about doing wrong in a crowded building. Someone always notices. The inspector wrote 2 citations in under 5 minutes. My son signed with a pen that stuttered. The landlord smiled like a man who had taken a deep breath after holding it too long. The movers put the desk back down and left without looking at anyone. My son stared at the floor as if the right tile could save him. "We should go," the man with the truck said. "Yes," I said. We walked out into the kind of late afternoon that is all glare. He did not speak until we reached the truck. "This is a lot," he said. "It is what it is," I said. "You know what he's thinking," he said. "That I am the problem," I said. "Yes," he said. "He is almost right," I said. "I am the person who pointed at the problem and did not look away. People hate the finger more than the stain." "He will hit bottom," he said. "I am not interested in his bottom," I said. "I am interested in the ledger closing." I booked the old wedding hall for a Tuesday afternoon under a different name. The owner did not care. Business is business. It was cheap in the daylight with the bar closed and the flower smell gone. The stage looked smaller. The dance floor looked like the kind of place where people make bad bargains and tell themselves they are wishers. I asked the man with the truck to bring my son and my daughter-in-law, not with force, with invitations that were hard to refuse. A hearing was coming. A story had been told. Another story was about to end. It seemed right to pick the same room, to set the scene where the slap had started it all, to let the echo hear itself. My son arrived first. He looked thinner, like stress had put him on a diet. My daughter came next, alone. She had the posture of a person walking through rain. My daughter-in-law breezed in last in a white blazer and a face like an expensive door. "What is this?" she said. "A meeting," I said. "I am not here to be yelled at," she said. "Then do not yell," I said. She laughed, and it was a sharp sound. "You booked a hall for a family therapy session," she said. "That is the saddest thing I have seen all week." "It is not therapy," I said. "It is a finish." The man with the truck stood near the back by the exit. He did not loom. He existed. That is enough. I put the apartment keys on the table, the same table where they had set cake. The keys made a small sound, like a bell in a church that no one visits anymore. "You want them?" I said to the bride. "There they are." She blinked. Then she smiled like a shark. "Finally," she said. "Take them," I said. "But listen first. I filed a petition. In a month, a judge will read the history of your little plan to turn me into a law. He will look at your words. He will look at the dates. He will look at the emails where you call me a resource. He will ask why you withdrew the petition. He will ask why you thought you could do it quietly. He will write a sentence that will live longer than your posts." Are you trying to scare me? She said. I am telling you the script, I said, and I am telling you what happens if you pick up those keys. I will sell the apartment myself next week to a woman whose name I already know, at a price that does not make you clap, but makes me free. You will get nothing. Or you can pick up the keys and try to sell it before the hearing and see how the court feels about that kind of energy. Either way, I win. You do not. She looked at my son. He did not look back. She looked at my daughter. My daughter looked at the floor. Give me the keys anyway, she said. You owe me for that humiliation you caused. You slapped me, I said. You made me, she said. No one makes anyone, I said. We only help them be who they are. She reached for the keys. The man with the truck coughed once. It was subtle. She stopped. She is not a coward. She is a calculator. She did the math. She pulled her hand back and folded her arms and tried to make it look like a power move. You think you are a villain, she said to me. You are just lonely. I can be both, I said. My son finally spoke. What do you want? He said. Simple, I said. A signed statement from both of you that the guardianship attempt was withdrawn because the basis was false. A public apology to your mother that names the slap. A private apology to the man who had to walk into your wedding and become a myth for you to act human for 30 seconds. And you will tell your clients the truth about your listings. You will try to be better, and if you cannot be better, you will be small and quiet and not hurt anyone else while you figure it out. You are blackmailing us, my son said. No, I said. I am using words to put a fence around the future. You can climb it or you can stay on your side. I do not care. I will sell the apartment and live where the elevator walks like a gentleman. I will buy my own groceries. I will go to my own doctor. I will take my own pills. I will breathe. You can do what you want. My daughter wiped her eyes and said she would sign. My son said he would think. My daughter-in-law said she would sue me for defamation. The man with the truck said quietly that truth is an absolute defense and that he had a file full of absolute. She told him to shut up. He did not respond. He was not there to talk. I picked up the keys. I put them in my pocket. I told them I would see them at the hearing. I turned to leave. Wait, my son said. I stopped. He walked to the center of the dance floor, where couples had spun while we smiled, and pretended that people do not bruise each other with attention. I am sorry, he said. He did not look at me. He looked at the stage. That was fine. Sometimes a man can only speak to furniture. For what? I said. For letting it happen, he said. For wanting your home like a prize. For believing my wife when she said you were a burden. She is your wife, I said. You believe the person you promised to believe until you don't. Are you going to forgive me? He said. I am going to finish what I started, I said. Forgiveness is a word for priest offices and Facebook posts. I do not have it in me today. My daughter-in-law made a small sound like a laugh catching on a bone. You think you won, she said. You will die alone in a hallway, and the super will find you days later. That is the future you bought yourself. They always said I would die alone, I said. Turns out I just had to bury the living first. We did not shake hands. We did not hug. We left the hall one by one like actors walking out of a bad play. The apartment sold to a retired nurse who had put 30 years into other people's nights. I set the price at a number a hungry son would mock and a patient father would respect. Cash buyer. Straightforward. The agent was a woman who looked like she might bulldoze a bank if it got between her and a closing. She shook my hand and thanked me for being decisive. I did not tell her that decisiveness hurts when you are old. I let her believe I was the kind of man who moves fast because I like the wind. I moved to a small place with an elevator that did not stutter and a neighbor who watered my plant when I forgot. I put the rest of the money where it would not show, not in some offshore scheme, in a ladder of bonds and a savings account that pays out like a slow faucet, which is the only way to drink when you are tired of thirst. The hearing date came closer like a bus. My lawyer prepared me to say simple things simply. He reminded me that I did not need to perform. The truth would carry itself if I did not put a costume on it. I practiced in front of the bathroom mirror. It was like meeting an old friend who looks like you but does not owe you money. The courtroom was a small one, the kind where they do not film episodes of anything. The judge wore the same expression he probably wears at home when a faucet leaks. My son sat with his lawyer. My daughter sat behind them, with her hands clasped tight, as if prayer could be belated and effective. My daughter-in-law did not come. She had a post to write. The judge read the file. He asked a few questions that were not tricky. He looked at the dates. He looked at me. He looked at my son. He asked why the petition had been filed and withdrawn. My son's lawyer said the family had been concerned, and then saw that their concern was misplaced. The judge asked what had prompted the concern. The lawyer tried to say age and forgetfulness. The judge asked for specifics. The specifics were thin. The judge wrote his words. He declared me competent in language that was neither flowery nor mean. He noted that the prior petition lacked basis, and that future petitions would be viewed with skepticism unless new facts arose of real weight. He allowed costs. He denied sanctions and explained why in patient detail. He told my son and daughter to be careful with the word care. He told me to be careful with my heart. We all nodded like students. Afterward, in the bright hallway that makes every person look like a suspect in their own life, my son stood near me and did not speak. My daughter touched my sleeve. "Can we go for coffee?" she said. "Not today," I said. "When?" she said. "When you stop asking for a timeline and start doing the thing without one," I said. She nodded. She is smarter than her choices suggest. She walked away without crying. Improvement comes in small units. There is a kind of end that is not an ending. It is a clean line you draw, and then you let time decorate it. That is what I wanted. But life gave me one more scene, and I took it because, sometimes, you do not refuse a gift even if it cuts. The old wedding hall was up for repossession. The owner lost 3 big weekends to a story that did not include my name, but carried my fingerprints. He called the man with the truck for help in moving sensitive equipment so the bank would not sell the wrong things to the wrong people. The man with the truck called me because he has a sense of poetry that would surprise you if you only saw his shoulders. "Come down," he said. "You should see the place empty." I went. The doors were open and the stage lights were off, and the floor was just wood. The smell of roses had been replaced by dust and someone else's lemon cleaner. I walked the room and felt every step I had taken there before. The slap, the cough of a violin string breaking, the keys on a table, the promise written in my own voice. My son was there. He stood near the bar counting something that could not be counted. He looked different, not broken, not healed, just rearranged. Sometimes loss does that. It moves your furniture until you stop tripping at night. "What are you doing here?" he said. "Helping a friend," I said. "Always helping strangers instead of family," he said. "Strangers pay attention," I said. He smiled, but it did not hold. "I am leaving town for a while," he said. "There is a brokerage in another city that doesn't read the local papers. I will start over." "Good," I said. "Do you want to say anything?" he said. "Before I go." "I already said it," I said. "In court and in rooms that smelled like lies. There is nothing left but the quiet." He nodded. He looked around. He put his hand on the bar and remembered something I could not see. Then he did a small thing I did not expect. He reached into his pocket and put a key on the counter. It was not my apartment key. That was gone to the nurse, and I have never been happier to say the words "gone" and "nurse" in the same sentence. It was the key to his first office after he got his license. The one I helped paint on a Saturday, when the heat was a rumor, and I told him the color would look too bold, and he told me bold sells. "I do not need it," he said. "I keep putting it in my pocket like a charm. It never worked." "Charms are for people who do not want to learn the trick," I said. He left without another word. The man with the truck came in with a dolly and a stack of plastic bins. He watched my son go and did not comment. He does not believe in two men talking about a third when none of them are saints. "Want to help with the lights?" he said. "Sure," I said. We worked. It felt like a decent day. Work is always the antidote. When the last crate was strapped down and the doors were locked, we stood in the parking lot with the twilight melting into a kind of syrupy blue. The air held that city mix of exhaust and dinner. I was about to say see you tomorrow when a car tore into the lot. It was the bride's car. She got out and walked toward us fast in heels that were not meant for speed. She had a folder in her hand and a look on her face that would have scared off a smarter man. She stopped 3 feet from me and held up the folder like a warrant. "This is a cease and desist," she said. "For what?" I said. "For being you," she said. Then she smiled, a razor slice of a thing. "I am kidding. It is for defamatory interference with advantageous business relationships. My lawyer wrote it. It has very nasty words inside. You will not like them." "I rarely like nasty words," I said. "You will sign that you will stop talking about me and my brand and my marriage," she said. "You will publicly say that the audio was fake or altered. You will take down any posts you made, and you will ask your sad little army to do the same." "I did not post," I said. "Then your army did," she said. "It is the same." "Not quite," the man with the truck said. "If you are going to use a legal tone, keep it accurate." She ignored him. "You have 1 hour," she said. "I will be at the coffee place where you like to sit and pretend you are tough. I will wait for your signature. If you do not show, we file in the morning, and I will make sure that the court of public opinion does not care what that old judge said. I can do that. I have reach." She turned and clicked back to her car and drove away in a line of sound and light that did not love her back. The man with the truck looked at me. "Do you want me to handle this?" he said. "No," I said. "I will handle it myself." "Do you have a plan?" he said. "Yes," I said. "Same plan as always. Let her speak and let people hear who she is." The coffee place was crowded with students who believe coffee is a meal, and people who treat public tables like private offices. The owner nodded at me and then at the bride. She sat in the back with a paper cup and the folder on the table like a small bomb that came with instructions. "You are punctual," she said. "I am old," I said. "It is one of the things we have that you cannot buy." She pushed the folder toward me. "Sign," she said. "No," I said. "You do not understand," she said. "If you do not sign, I will drag you across the internet until your name tastes bitter. I will tell stories and they will stick because people like stories about bad old parents. You will get calls at night and people will spit when you walk past. You will wish you had died before you saw what I can make." "People already spit," I said. "The ones who matter do not, and you are not one of them." She leaned forward. "I should have hit you harder," she said. The room went still. She realized it as the words left her. That is what happens when your life is a performance. You forget the audience is there until they start asking for their money back. Someone near the door said her name. Not loud, just clear. A hand raised a phone. Another followed. The owner stood behind the counter, arms crossed. The bride looked around and saw the mirrors she had never noticed. Her mouth opened and closed. She tried to smile. She tried to call it a joke. Jokes have timing. This had none. "You can sue me," I said, rising. "File whatever you like. The judge will ask for evidence, and you will bring air in a folder. The bank will ask for collateral, and you will bring your face. The sponsors will ask for integrity, and you will bring a sad little speech about haters. Do what you do, I will do what I do, which is live." She reached for my arm. The man with the truck stepped between us with that quiet movement that says no without spelling it. She drew back like she had touched a stove. She glanced around and saw there would be no applause. She grabbed the folder and went out with her head high, and her mouth tight and her eyes doing math at a frantic speed. I stood there and felt the end settle on me like a decent coat. It is not triumph. It is not revenge sung from a rooftop. It is something smaller and stronger. It is a ledger with the last line written and the pen capped. I walked back to the hall because I wanted to see it one more time. The bank agent was there with a small team carrying out the last of the equipment. The room sounded different when it was empty. It sounded like a held breath releasing. The man with the truck joined me at the edge of the dance floor. We stood without talking. The city pressed in at the windows. The light came in flat and honest. I thought about keys and signatures, and the hunger that dresses up as love. I thought about the boy my son had been, and the men we both had become. I thought about my daughter sitting alone in her kitchen, and maybe not crying this time, which is a kind of victory nobody posts about. The repossession officer asked us to step back while they moved the last crate. The crate slid, tipped, and caught. For a second, it looked like it would fall and smash and make a mess of all our clean endings. The man with the truck stepped in and steadied it with one hand. The officer thanked him. The man just nodded. He always had a way of making strength look like good manners. People will say later that I destroyed my family. People always pick the version that lets them ignore the boring parts of justice. Here is my version. They tried to turn me into a piece of furniture. I decided to be a room. On the way out, I stopped on the stage where the vows had been said and the slap laid on my cheek like a brand. My heart did a thing it had not done in months. It slowed. It did not stop. It learned a new pace. I looked at the man with the truck. "You paid your debt," I said. "I never had one," he said. "But I am glad to see you get what you came for." "I came for the finish," I said. "Then this is it," he said. Outside, the sky was a deep blue, the color of old laundry left in the shade. The city hummed and the air tasted like metal and bread. A car rolled past, slow. Inside, my son drove. He looked straight ahead and did not see us. His eyes were fixed on a road that did not know his name yet. He did not wave. He did not need to. He turned the corner and was gone. The bank agent locked the door and checked the handle and wrote something on a clipboard. The man with the truck walked to his vehicle and climbed in. I walked to the edge of the lot and stood in the place where I had stood on the wedding day. My cheek did not hurt anymore. The memory did. That is fine. Pain is honest work. I took a breath and felt something settle in my chest. Not joy, not peace, just the seat of a chair that finally fits. I did not forgive anyone. I did not ask for redemption. I did not make a speech to an empty room. I started my car. I watched the mirror. I pulled out into the street and moved with the traffic like a man who has learned to signal early and check twice. Behind me, the hall stood quiet and dark and clean of us. Ahead, lights changed, and people crossed, and the world did what it always does when you are done with it. It kept going. They always said I would die alone. Turns out I just had to bury the living first.